On this episode of the SLO County Real Estate with House Sweasey podcast, Team Sweasey talks about the challenges of what you should offer for a house in a hot market.
I mean, I had a listing a month ago that we had 70 showings on a condo in town in 2 days.
On a condo?
On a condo in town, 70 showings.
Just because the property has a listing price doesn't mean that it necessarily meets market value.
If it's a good property, don't get caught up in the fact that I'm paying more. Anybody who outbid anybody else in the last 5 years, you know what they're thinking right now? Thank goodness.
Right. Yeah,
I'm glad I did it.
Join Hal, James, JT, and Jay for a closer look into how you should be structuring your offers in order to get it accepted. Here is Team Sweasey member and host of the SLO County Real Estate with House Sweasey podcast, James Bueno.
Welcome to the House Sweasey podcast. With me, I have the president of Team Sweasey, House Sweasey with me, business consultant for House Sweasey, John Turner, and of Keller Williams, Mr. JP. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's jump right into it. Our topic today is paying over asking price. Prices have been going up and crazy. How? Is it a good idea to pay over asking price when you're buying a house?
If you look back over time, there's been situations where properties were priced below market and they would get bid up. If you had a brand new, I don't know, what's an expensive car, Ferrari or something like that, and somebody said, here's a Ferrari brand new for $50,000. I'm sure it costs way more than that. Do you think it would get bid up?
Is this a house auction? What do you mean?
Well, what I'm saying is if it's going for sale, people will go, oh, well, I'm going to offer more than that because that thing's below the market. I think people need to get over the fact that if there's more than one person offering on a property and it's competing offers, that's not a bad thing, because in real estate, if a house in a regular market where homes are selling in a month or two, for example, and it's on the market for 3 or 4 months, what do you think people think about a house that's been sitting when other homes are selling?
Something wrong with it.
Yeah,
Gotta
get
be.
some sort of stick.
I'm going to offer a whole lot less.
I'm going to offer less. Nobody else is buying it. Why should I buy it? You should almost feel glad that other people are interested, meaning when you ever sell the house, it'll be, it's an in-demand property. But let's take a bigger look, because that's not going to make people happy to hear that. What I think people are saying is, okay, if I'm looking at a house and Jeff's here and he's producing and he's talking about his house purchase, which I thought was a phenomenal example. He had set price. Hey, the most we're going to do over asking is $30,000. And they did that 7 times and it didn't work, right? And finally, they had a house that they really, really wanted. He offered $55,000 more and got the house. If you would have taken, 4, 5, 6 months, which can happen in this market, and waited, what do you think in those cases in the last 10 years has happened to house prices usually over 6 months? Gone up,
Gone
right?
up, most definitely, yeah.
So if you're looking at a house that's desirable and you got a favorable payment and you have to go up, let's say $40,000, which I don't want to make light of that, but $40,000 at today's rates, that's a lot of money. At today's rates for a mortgage, if you just borrowed that amount, $40,000 at 5.5%, which that's about where rates are, a little bit lower some days, a little bit not much higher, it's going to cost you about $200, $206 a month. So Jay, you were talking about your son. You just got him a rental.
Yeah,
right?
he went into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, like second-story apartment, 1,000 square feet, and he's paying $3,000 a month rent.
So let's say I'm a renter. I'm worried about the market. It seems high. I don't want to bid more. Okay, I get it. And if you're paying $3,000 a month rent and you get a rent increase of 9%, which a landlord could do if they want, right? So that's what, $270?
Yep.
So
every year.
You're now paying more money when you could have locked in for an extra $200 a month to a mortgage that will be fixed for 30 years. If it's a good property, don't get caught up in the fact that I'm paying more. Anybody who outbid anybody else in the last 5 years, you know what they're thinking right now? Thank goodness.
Right. Yeah,
I'm glad I did it.
The deal is getting the house.
Right. So that's the perspective somebody has to take when they're in a competitive situation. I mean, going to auction, nobody bids on something. What does that mean about the value of the item? It's not worth anything. That people understand how important it is to own real estate. So I would say take it on an individual basis. We deal with this all the time, but sometimes you have to take a step back and see what you're really committing to versus what the option is.
So you're the listings guy. How many of your listings would you say go over your asking price?
This year, almost all of them. Yeah, we average 6% above list price.
Yeah.
And that means some are going 10% over and some maybe a little bit less. But this year so far, I think a couple at full price, and that's just the latest, So not much.
So buying a house, you should expect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's a good house and it checks all the boxes, there are going to be a lot of people who want it, including you. So be ready.
I think one of the consulting questions that agents are asking their buyers now is, what's that house worth to you? Forget what the list price is. What's that house worth to you? And if the house is listed for $850 and somebody else bought it for $950 and moved into your house, would you be disappointed? And if the answer is no, I wouldn't be disappointed, then it's not worth $950 to you. It's worth $950 to someone else.
But there is a worth. So you have to get an appraisal, correct? Like your house is appraised. There is a quote worth, what your house is worth. Let's say that the $850 house appraises for $750,000.
An appraisal is a backwards view. That's a historical value of a property. That's something that's already happened. And what we're doing when we're looking at properties on the market today, we're talking about today, current, and future value when we're making offers. Because every month that ticks by, properties are going up in value. And when we're talking about appraisals, we're talking about historical values. And that can come up to be a problem if you've got a lender that says, we need to have the house appraised if we're going to lend this amount of money. And I'm sure Hal's run into this problem.
Surprisingly enough, with as strong as the market's been, I've had very few appraisal issues, right? It's like, oh, they agreed on this price and the appraiser says, no, I can, they're paying $900, I can only come up with $875.
You know what I attest that to, Hal, is that when you said something very unique a moment ago, that your listings, because you're heavy in listings, is that you're 6 to 10 above asking price because you're pricing the properties properly. I've seen properties go for 40 and 50 over asking price because they were priced poorly, to be honest. I think that's a testimony to what you do and how you represent your sellers.
Thank you. Yeah.
One of the things I've learned since I've started working with Hal is I used to think as a seller, well, I'll just price my house aggressively, and if I don't get it, I can always lower the price. And what I've learned is that that's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people don't like to lower their price as a seller, right? You're talking about a seller, yeah.
Right.
And yeah, the psychology is, if you go to a store and there's one item on the shelf and there's 3 people in the aisle and there's the only thing, you're going to start running faster than you normally would, right? So when people compete, they do more. Why do auctions work so well? Because people are like, oh, well, they want it, then and if nobody wants it, it's like, well, thing's going to sit there.
There's emotions involved.
Well, for sure it's emotions, yeah. But, why do people go to gym classes instead of by themselves? Because there's other people around. They want to, it's in human nature to be somewhat competitive. At the end of the day, though, for a buyer, they have to make a sound decision. I think JT's advice is the best, right? And it's really boiling down to what is that house worth to you? And then at the end, it gets incremental. So I'm just saying, and that's why as a representative for sellers oftentimes, I let people know that sometimes just little moves is a way to get to a much larger target. Meaning like, hey, James, can you put out 100 push-ups right now?
Definitely not.
Yeah, it's a no for all of us, right? Oh, except John. John will do 100.
John,
yeah, given the appropriate time frame.
Time
right? So, but if I say, hey, can you do 10? Sure, right? And then and then Jay goes, well, I can do 10. Jay does 11. And next thing, well, I'll do a few more, right? Next thing you know, 15, 20 minutes later, you guys might be pushing 50 or 100. I don't know. Right. You guys are strong. But anyway, my point is sometimes that happens. And if you go to an auction, you'll see people go, hey, anybody give me $10,000 for this $200 item? Well, that shuts down the room. Okay, just give me $50, and they start the bidding, right? Sure. So anyway, competitive pricing happens, and you just have to be comfortable with what you're going to offer. You
started with this paying over asking price a good idea, and my smart aleck answer is only if you want to buy a house.
So what you're saying is that you should expect to pay over asking price. As of right now, we notice somewhat of a shift, right, in the market. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Well, yeah. Honestly, for 6 to 10 months, I'm losing track of time. But my sit down with the sellers, listen, let me have James come in and do our professional photography on a Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll get everything drafted up for the pre-marketing. We'll post it and put it on all the websites as a coming soon listing. You guys go take a hike for 3 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday. Give us that time. I had a listing a month ago that we had 70 showings on a condo in town in 2 days.
On a condo?
On a condo in town, 70 showings. So on Monday, we'll gather up all the offers and we'll start the bidding process. That has changed for certain properties. Like, the whole weekend went by and only a few people looked at it and we didn't have an offer. And then,
Right.
oh no, the last, 2 weeks later we get an offer and it's only full price and people are crying. Well,
Right, yeah.
let's step back for a second.
Yeah, easy.
In most markets,
Right,
if
yeah.
you get a full price offer,
Right.
you're calling your parents or your friends and going,
Right.
hey, I got a full price offer. Now it's like, well, I didn't get 10 people bidding. I'm pissed off. That change could happen. It's bound to happen. Yeah,
Right.
3 to 4 days market time is not normal.
Which created a little bit of panic. People see a shift, thinking it's a bubble, and we talked about a bubble before. Are we going to go back to, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's been a fast move.
Yeah.
If you get gas every day at $3.50 a gallon and suddenly it moves up to $6 a gallon, your behavior is going to change and you're going to be upset. And that kind of has happened in real estate a little bit. Where's my 3% rate? I'm at 5.5, which is still really good.
Yeah.
But then you just get used to it. And now I'm still paying $6 a gallon or whatever it is. And people get adjusted to that. And this is where the prices are okay. And we got a little adjusted to super quick market times and competing offers. That may subside somewhat. But then people get used to it. And now I'm seeing competing offers again, right? So we had a lull for like a month and a half. And now it's like, oh, well, we had 6 offers on this one. Who would have known? The market ebbs and flows all the time.
Jay, is it consistent with all the Keller Williams listing agents as well, just like how?
Yeah, we've got 220 agents under the brokerage and close over 100 deals a month. And 6 months ago, 20 offers, all over asking price. Now we're seeing on average 3 or 4, maybe 1 or 2 with conditions. So there's 2 real solid offers and one of them gets accepted. So the offer count has come down because the prices have gotten to a point. And I think it's really important to notice or to reference the rate increase, right? In interest rates, every time the rate goes up a half a point, you lose $50,000 in buying power. So that's taking some of the people out of the market or putting them in a different price point to be looking for properties, and that changes things a lot. But yeah, I think we're seeing it across the county as a standard. Things are kind of percolating, bouncing on the ceiling, and that's just where we're at.
There's also an interesting phenomena in our history. And if you'd have said to me, Hal, on January the 1st, hey, JT, rates are going to go up later on this year, and so prices might start to dip a little bit, I'd have said, that makes absolute sense to me. Well, in our history, there's no correlation between interest rates and appreciation. In fact, if you look back in our history, some of those times where our interest rates were the highest, my first house, double-digit interest rates, in 1978, we had tremendous appreciation in the late 70s and early 80s when mortgage rates were above 10%. Interest rates going up, yeah, it does affect buying power, yes. But if history repeats itself, it may not impact pricing that much.
Well, I have an economics degree, and I don't know how I got that, but it was because it was from Cal Poly,
Yeah.
and a great university, which I love. And I'm joking, but economically, that was an inflationary time, right?
Right.
So when there's inflation, your dollar doesn't go as far, so you want to have it in things that go up in value. So I think I see that now, right? Because the rates have impacted some people, but there's a lot of people with intergenerational wealth.
Yeah.
There's families going together to help children purchase, a lot of cash purchases. And when your cash makes less than 1% sitting in a bank, and with inflation maybe less next year, you go, well, why don't we put that in a house, which will be worth more? We have a place to live, or whatever they do. So it is interesting because I'm still not sure I believe JT, but I saw the graphs. Nationwide, increase in rates did not drive prices down. Who would have thought?
So earlier we talked about the emotional part of it, like bidding more and increasing prices. Do you ever get the buyer's remorse? Somebody gets their deal accepted, they're like, I pay too much for this. I don't want it.
That's normal. If you don't have it or feel it, it's weird. Almost everybody has some sense of that. And then sometimes we're talking about, okay, you always have the option to not, go forward with it. We want people to be happy. And then we have to provide some context. It's like having a kid in high school. I'm studying with this test, with science. I'm just not, it's so hard. Can I just give up? Well, you can. But why don't we just stick in there and get through the finished class? And usually that time is when you're tested as a person. Can I afford it? Afraid I can't. Are we good enough? Those sort of things. And I'm not a psychologist, but I just see it a lot and just go, you know what?
Sure.
People that have a lot of confidence, they just kind of move through it and go, okay. And sometimes the biggest challenges in your life are the things that scare you the most. And when you get on the other side, you go, whew, did it. right?
Yeah.
I think James is talking about buyer remorse from the time you get your offer accepted until the time you close it, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
How you've sold nearly 3,000 houses in this county since you started 30 years ago. How many of those people do you think have buyer's remorse?
Now,
Yes.
0.
The witness is excused.
I don't know. You
Yeah.
get in, you're glad you
Yeah.
did. I don't like buying cars, but when I buy it, I remember one time I bought one. It was new. And the next day I called the guy. I really don't like it that much.
You're stuck
and then,
with it.
And I had it, and then I was like, no, I love the car. And that was a car I didn't really like that much. So people love to have their homes, and they become theirs. So
Yeah.
It's a wealth building vehicle. It truly is.
Yeah.
I made in an earlier session here, I mentioned that I bought my house, the one I'm living in 2006. I grossly overpaid. That was right before the market collapsed, and I'd lost half of its value by 2008.
did you lose it?
I didn't, because I
You
didn't
didn't
sell.
lose it, right?
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
would have
lose anything.
You would have lost
value
it if
went
you
down.
sold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
The value went
So-
down, and so did your mortgage rate.
Yeah, everything went down. Yeah, and
Your
now
cost of owning that house went down.
I'm so glad I did. I bought the house, and there was while I was in escrow, I'm like, oh my gosh, no house has ever sold for this much on this street. Are we idiots? Well, we got to live somewhere.
Right.
We want our kids in the school district. We're paying it, and I'm so glad that being able to pull cash out and buy one of the businesses that I own. It was really, it's a wealth building tool, and I just no remorse.
Yeah.
We've heard Hal say this before. It's not timing in the market, it's time in the market.
Absolutely.
And it's not just true in real estate, it's true in other investments. You look back, if you had $100,000 in your 401k in late in 2007, you'd have awakened in March of 2008 and it's worth $50,000. Now your choice is to do nothing or to sell. And if you sold, you'd have about $60,000 today. And if you did nothing, you'd have about $300,000 today. So, same is true with housing. Just if you have the appropriate time horizon, meaning you own the house long enough, you're going to do great.
And let me backstop that, because everybody's worried about the next recession. It makes headlines in the news. What's going to happen? Trust me, it crosses my mind as well. And the unique thing about being here in real estate is, unless you're in a situation where you have to sell your house. Okay, when do you have to sell your house? You got a loan, maybe you lose your job, you can't afford it, right? So what are your options? Here, the reason our prices maybe didn't drop as much during the recession is because we have a really strong rental market.
Yeah.
So nobody's going to give you a loan today on a place you can't afford, but circumstances can change, right? And then even if you have to move for a job, I lost my job in San Luis Obispo. I did get another one in Oklahoma. I'm taking the job because I need the job. A lot of people just rented their homes out. They waited out the storm. The thing covered itself. And now, they're fine. So if I think I've bought and sold real estate for myself, and if I always look back, if there's something I tell my kids, it's like, yeah, the people who are smart just never sold anything. Not that you shouldn't, but I'm just saying over time it makes a difference. So you are pretty well protected with a thing like a house. Even if the worst calamity happens, for almost everybody, you can be okay, especially here. I can speak to the Central Coast.
Price is going to level off at all. We talked about last episode. There was a 34% increase in San Luis Obispo, the city of San Luis Obispo. Is it good? Are prices going to start leveling off? It maybe not tapering down. Should everybody expect just prices just keep rising and rising and rising, or what should we expect?
Who's got the crystal ball?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going
Well,
on to
yeah.
Amazon right
John-
now to order one.
Yeah, what should we expect?
John's more an optimist than I am, for sure, right? Because
Yeah.
he's studied that, and he's in the financial services industry, so he
Right.
sees the
Mr.
power
MBA,
of time.
yeah.
And every time I look at price, I go, how on the earth is this happening? But I've been thinking that for 8 years.
May of 2023, are we going to have a 30% increase in price?
It doesn't seem likely, but I have no idea. Maybe if we have another pandemic, I shouldn't even say that. That's
Please
horrible to say, but
please retract
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm going to retract that.
Please-
Erase
please.
that. Oh my gosh. But who would have thought this situation,
Right.
would create this kind of response? People making their house more important, people migrating from cities,
Yeah.
people working from home. Who would have ever thought that would have affected real estate? Not me. I'm not that
This
smart.
is some amazing
It's the
things.
opposite effect in
Yeah.
San Francisco proper or LA proper. People are getting out. I don't know what the prices are there, but
Well, no, they're going up there. Trust me, it's all over the country. I talk to people all over the country. In spite of people leaving there and other places, the prices are still increasing in all these places.
Everywhere.
Right? So will it level, James? You go back to 2018. I forget which year. It'd be strong for 4 months. Then
Yeah.
and then it's like, wow, my neighbor got one, $1 million for his house. Now it's August. Nobody's even willing to pay me $900. How did that happen? It changes all the time. This is not a speculative thing, owning or buying real estate. This is a long-term thing. So, if I own Amazon stock or whatever company and that's paying me my dividend, I don't care if it goes to zero. If I don't sell it, it doesn't matter as long, hey, I'm getting that monthly. I've got some value. I think people get really caught up in prices and they should look at the value. What is the value of having a consistent cost of living? Hello.
Right.
A lot of people like security.
JT, you had something.
I was teasing a friend this morning on the phone. I said, because we were talking about this very subject, and when the top of the market is in the stock market, it's the same day that the top of the market is in the real estate market for me, and it's the day I check out of this earth. None of us have seen the top of the market. Oh, we saw the top of the market in 2008. Oh, now it's not the top of the market anymore, is it? We haven't seen the top of the market yet, either in the stock market or the real estate market, if you ask me.
Question was, is paying over asking a good idea? So any final thoughts on that?
Deal is, getting a deal in real estate, the deal is getting the house. And the house is worth what somebody's willing to pay. That's the fundamental principle of capitalism.
Answer's yes.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yep,
Yes.
I agree.
House Sweasey.
Thanks
All
for
right,
covering this.
gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, James.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James.
Thank you for listening to the House Sweasey podcast. Be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast. It comes out every Monday, so check for it in your feed for the latest information on the San Luis Obispo County market. The SLO County Real Estate with House Sweasey podcast is available wherever you get your podcast and on housesweasey.com, where you can find current listings and other real estate tips. housesweasey.com, that's HALSWEASEY.com. I am James Bueno, Director of Marketing for the House Sweasey Group. If you're looking for anything real estate, give us a call, 805-781-3750.
House Sweasey is a licensed California real estate broker. DRE number 01111-911. The SLO County Real Estate with House Sweasey podcast is a production of AGM Podcasts. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.